The morning sun cast long shadows across the military airfield as Chief Warrant Officer Sarah Martinez approached the massive AH-64 Apache helicopter. The aircraft sat silent on the tarmac, its twin engines cold and lifeless. For 3 weeks now, this particular Apache had been nothing more than an expensive paperweight, and the frustration among the maintenance crew was reaching a breaking point. The trouble had started during a routine training mission. Captain Jake Thompson was piloting the Apache through combat maneuvers when suddenly the starboard engine began making an unusual grinding noise. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit display, and Thompson had to make an emergency landing. What should have been a simple engine repair had turned into the most challenging mechanical puzzle the base had ever faced. Martinez walked around the helicopter, her trained eyes scanning every detail. She had been working on military aircraft for 15 years, and she had never encountered anything quite like this. The engine appeared perfect from the outside, but something deep within its complex machinery was causing catastrophic failures every time they attempted to start it. The maintenance hangar buzzed with activity as a team of highly skilled technicians worked frantically around the grounded Apache. Staff Sergeant Mike Chen, the lead engine specialist, wiped sweat from his forehead as he emerged from beneath the aircraft. He had been working 18-hour days trying to solve this mystery, and the dark circles under his eyes told the story of his exhaustion. "Any luck today?" Martinez asked, though she could already tell from Chen's expression what the answer would be. Chen shook his head slowly. "We've replaced every component we can think of. New fuel pumps, fresh ignition systems, rebuilt the entire fuel injection assembly. Everything tests perfectly individually, but the moment we try to fire up the engine, it seizes completely." The Apache helicopter was not just any aircraft. It was one of the most advanced attack helicopters in the world, capable of carrying out precision strikes and providing crucial support for ground troops. Each Apache cost over $30 million and represented years of engineering expertise. Having one grounded indefinitely was not just expensive, it was a serious threat to mission readiness. Technical Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez joined the conversation, her laptop displaying endless diagnostic data. She had been analyzing engine performance statistics for days, comparing normal operation patterns with the mysterious failures they were experiencing. Every test came back normal until the moment of ignition, when everything went catastrophically wrong. "The computer systems are all functioning perfectly," Rodriguez explained, scrolling through screens of data. "Fuel pressure is optimal. Electrical systems are showing green across the board, and all sensors are responding correctly. But something is preventing the engine from running for more than 30 seconds. The base commander, Colonel James Harrison, had been growing increasingly concerned about the situation. The Apache was scheduled for an important training exercise with Allied forces in just 2 weeks, and having a key aircraft out of commission was unacceptable. He had already received several calls from higher command asking for status updates, and his answers were becoming more uncomfortable each day. Martinez decided to take a different approach. Instead of focusing on individual components, she began examining the engine's history. She pulled maintenance records going back 3 years, looking for patterns or previous issues that might provide clues. The paperwork revealed that this particular Apache had been through several upgrades recently, including new avionics systems and enhanced targeting equipment. As she dug deeper into the records, something caught her attention. 6 months earlier, the helicopter had undergone a major overhaul at a civilian contractor facility. The work had been completed successfully, and the Apache had returned to service without any apparent problems. However, Martinez noticed that some of the documentation from that overhaul was missing key details about engine calibration procedures. Chen had been working with a team of factory representatives from the engine manufacturer, but even they were baffled by the problem. The company had sent their best troubleshooting experts, armed with specialized diagnostic equipment and years of experience. They had run every test in their manual and tried several experimental procedures, but nothing had worked. The mystery deepened when the team discovered that the engine would run perfectly for exactly 28 seconds every time they tested it. The timing was so precise that it seemed almost impossible to be coincidental. Something was causing a delayed shutdown. But traditional diagnostic equipment could not identify what was triggering the failure. Word of the problem had spread throughout the base, and mechanics from other units had begun offering their assistance. The maintenance hangar had become a gathering place for some of the most experienced technicians on the base, all eager to try their hand at solving the puzzle. Despite their combined expertise, the Apache remained stubbornly grounded. Martinez spent her evenings researching similar cases online and reaching out to contacts at other military bases. She discovered that there had been a few similar incidents reported over the years, but none with exactly the same symptoms. Most engine problems were either immediately obvious or could be resolved through standard troubleshooting procedures. The pressure was mounting from multiple directions. The training exercise was approaching rapidly, and Colonel Harrison was facing difficult questions about why his maintenance team could not resolve what appeared to be a simple engine problem. The manufacturer's representatives were equally frustrated, as their reputation was on the line, and they could not explain why their sophisticated engine was behaving so mysteriously. Rodriguez had begun exploring the possibility that the problem was not mechanical at all. She suspected that there might be a software issue causing the engine control system to shut down the engine as a safety precaution. However, multiple software diagnostics had revealed no errors, and the control system appeared to be functioning exactly as designed. The team decided to try a completely different strategy. Instead of continuing to replace parts and run standard tests, they would monitor every aspect of the engine's operation during the critical 28-second window when it actually ran. Using high-speed data recording equipment, they hoped to capture the exact moment when the failure occurred and identify what was triggering the shutdown. The test began early on a Friday morning, with the entire maintenance team gathered around the Apache. Dozens of sensors had been attached to various engine components, and recording equipment was set up to capture data at incredibly high speeds. The atmosphere was tense as Chen initiated the startup sequence, knowing that they had only a brief window to gather crucial information. The engine roared to life with its characteristic powerful sound, and for 28 seconds, everything appeared normal. Then, as predicted, it suddenly shut down. However, this time they had captured every detail of those critical moments, and the data would hopefully provide the breakthrough they desperately needed. As the team analyzed the recorded data, they made a disturbing discovery. During the 28th second of operation, there was a tiny fluctuation in fuel pressure that lasted for less than a millisecond. This microscopic variation was triggering the engine's safety systems to shut down the entire unit, but the fluctuation was so brief that standard diagnostic equipment could not detect it. The discovery was both encouraging and frustrating. They had finally identified what was causing the shutdown, but finding the source of that tiny pressure fluctuation would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. The fuel system contained hundreds of components, any one of which could potentially cause such a brief pressure variation. Chen and his team began the painstaking process of checking every component in the fuel delivery system. They tested pumps, filters, sensors, and countless fittings, looking for anything that might cause the mysterious pressure drop. Days passed without any significant discoveries, and the training exercise deadline continued to approach relentlessly. Martinez had been thinking about the problem from a different angle. The 28-second timing seemed too precise to be caused by a random mechanical failure. She suspected that something in the engine's recent upgrade history might be causing a delayed reaction that triggered the pressure fluctuation. However, without complete documentation from the previous overhaul, her investigation was limited. The situation had attracted attention from beyond the base. Military aviation experts from around the country had heard about the mysterious Apache engine problem, and several had offered to provide assistance. The manufacturer had escalated the issue to their highest technical levels, treating it as a priority case that could affect their reputation across the entire military helicopter market. Colonel Harrison called a meeting with his senior staff to discuss the situation. The training exercise was now less than a week away, and he needed to make some difficult decisions about whether to proceed without the Apache or risk embarrassing delays. The pressure from his superiors was increasing daily, and he knew that his own career could be affected if the problem was not resolved quickly. The sound of rotor blades cutting through the morning air announced the arrival of someone important. A sleek Black Hawk helicopter touched down on the far side of the airfield, and Colonel Harrison straightened his uniform as he prepared to greet his unexpected visitor. General Patricia Williams stepped out of the aircraft with the confidence of someone who had seen everything the military could throw at her during her 30-year career. General Williams was not just any officer. She was the deputy commander of Army Aviation, responsible for ensuring that every helicopter in the fleet was mission-ready. When she heard about the mysterious Apache engine problem that had stumped everyone from base mechanics to factory engineers, she decided to investigate personally. Her reputation for solving impossible problems had earned her the nickname the troubleshooter among her peers. As the general toured the maintenance hangar, she listened carefully to the explanations from Martinez, Chen, and the rest of the team. Her questions were precise and revealed a deep understanding of helicopter mechanics that surprised even the experienced technicians. She had started her career as a maintenance officer before moving into command positions, and she still remembered the intricacies of aircraft systems. "Show me everything you've tried," Williams ordered, and for the next 2 hours, the team demonstrated their various attempts to solve the engine problem. She watched silently as they replayed the high-speed data recordings, studied the microscopic pressure fluctuation, and explained their theories about what might be causing the mysterious shutdown. Rodriguez presented her software analysis, showing screen after screen of diagnostic data that all appeared normal. Chen demonstrated the precise 28-second failure pattern, and Martinez explained her suspicions about the previous overhaul work. The general absorbed every detail, occasionally asking pointed questions that revealed gaps in their investigation. After completing her tour, General Williams gathered the senior staff in Colonel Harrison's office. Her expression was serious as she reviewed the situation and the approaching deadline for the training exercise. The international implications of the exercise meant that failure was not an option, but she also understood the safety concerns about flying an aircraft with an undiagnosed engine problem. "I've seen similar issues before," Williams said quietly, "but not exactly like this one. The precision of the timing suggests we're dealing with something more sophisticated than a simple mechanical failure. Have you considered the possibility that this might be related to cybersecurity?" The suggestion sent a chill through the room. The idea that the Apache's engine problems might be caused by some form of digital interference had not seriously been considered. The helicopter's computer systems were supposedly secure, protected by multiple layers of encryption and isolated from external networks. Rodriguez immediately began checking for signs of unauthorized software or unusual network activity. Her investigation revealed that while the Apache's primary systems were secure, some of the diagnostic equipment being used by the maintenance team had been connected to the base's general network for software updates. This created a potential pathway for external interference. The possibility of cyber warfare added an entirely new dimension to the problem. If someone was deliberately causing the engine failures, it would explain why traditional mechanical troubleshooting had been unsuccessful. However, proving such interference would require specialized expertise that was not available on the base. General Williams made a decision that surprised everyone in the room. She reached for her secure phone and placed a call to someone whose identity she did not immediately reveal. The conversation was brief and cryptic, consisting mainly of location coordinates and a request for immediate assistance. When she hung up, she simply said, "Help is coming." The next morning, a nondescript civilian sedan arrived at the base's main gate. The driver was an elderly man in casual clothes who looked more like someone's grandfather than a military expert. Security personnel were initially confused about why this civilian had been granted immediate access to a restricted military facility until they received confirmation that he was there at the direct request of General Williams. Marcus Thompson was 72 years old and had been officially retired from military service for over a decade. However, his reputation as the most skilled helicopter mechanic in Army history had kept him in demand for consulting on the most challenging problems. He had worked on every type of military aircraft imaginable, from vintage Vietnam-era helicopters to the most advanced modern attack aircraft. When Thompson arrived at the maintenance hangar, his appearance drew skeptical looks from some of the younger technicians. His hands were weathered from decades of working with tools, and his slightly hunched posture suggested that age was catching up with him. However, General Williams greeted him with obvious respect, and word quickly spread that this unassuming elderly man was a legend in military aviation circles. Thompson's approach to the problem was completely different from everything the team had tried before. Instead of focusing on the technical data and diagnostic readings, he spent his first hour simply listening to the engine. He had the team start and stop the Apache repeatedly, each time positioning himself in different locations around the aircraft to hear the subtle variations in sound. "Engines talk to you if you know how to listen," Thompson explained to the gathered technicians. "Every mechanical problem creates its own unique sound signature, but modern diagnostic equipment often misses these audio clues because it's focused on digital measurements." Martinez watched in fascination as Thompson used techniques that seemed almost primitive compared to the sophisticated equipment they had been relying on. He placed his hands on various engine components to feel for vibrations, used a simple stethoscope to listen to internal sounds, and even smelled different parts of the engine to detect unusual odors. After his initial assessment, Thompson made a request that surprised everyone. He asked to review not just the recent maintenance records, but also the complete service history of every tool that had been used on the aircraft during its recent overhaul. His theory was that the problem might be related to contamination or improper calibration of equipment, rather than the aircraft itself. The investigation revealed that during the overhaul 6 months earlier, the civilian contractor had used a specialized fuel system calibration tool that had been recently serviced. The calibration records for this tool showed that it had been adjusted shortly before being used on the Apache, but the documentation about those adjustments was incomplete. Thompson's experience told him that improperly calibrated tools could create subtle problems that might not manifest immediately. If the fuel injection system had been calibrated incorrectly, it could cause the precise timing issues they were experiencing. However, detecting such calibration errors would require recreating the exact conditions that existed during the original overhaul. Working with Chen and Rodriguez, Thompson developed a plan to test his theory. They would need to recalibrate the fuel system using the same procedures that should have been followed during the original overhaul. This was a complex process that would take several hours and required specialized equipment that had to be borrowed from the manufacturer. The recalibration process began early the next day, with Thompson supervising every step personally. His decades of experience became evident as he caught subtle errors in technique that the younger technicians had missed. He insisted on checking every measurement twice and verifying each adjustment against multiple reference standards. As the work progressed, Thompson shared stories about similar problems he had encountered throughout his career. Many of the most challenging mechanical issues he had solved had been caused by seemingly minor errors in maintenance procedures or tool calibration. His ability to think beyond the obvious technical explanations had made him invaluable for solving problems that stumped other experts. The recalibration revealed several small discrepancies in the fuel injection timing. While each individual error was within acceptable tolerances, Their combined effect was creating the mysterious pressure fluctuation that triggered the safety shutdown. Thompson's theory was proving correct, but fixing the problem would require completely rebuilding the fuel injection calibration from scratch. General Williams monitored the progress closely, knowing that time was running out before the training exercise. The international partners were already arriving at nearby bases, and canceling or postponing the exercise would have serious diplomatic implications. However, she also knew that rushing the repair work could create safety risks that were unacceptable. Thompson worked methodically through the recalibration process, refusing to be hurried despite the time pressure. His attention to detail was legendary, and he insisted on verifying every adjustment multiple times before moving to the next step. The younger technicians watched in amazement as he demonstrated techniques they had never learned in their formal training. The most challenging part of the recalibration involved adjusting the timing of fuel injection pulses to precisely match the engine's operating characteristics. This required making microscopic adjustments while monitoring multiple parameters simultaneously. Thompson's steady hands and vast experience were essential for achieving the level of precision required. As the recalibration neared completion, tension in the hangar was palpable. Everyone knew that this might be their last chance to solve the problem before the training exercise deadline. If Thompson's approach failed, they would have to make the difficult decision about whether to proceed with an incomplete aircraft complement or risk the embarrassment of canceling the international exercise. Rodriguez had been monitoring the diagnostic equipment throughout the recalibration process, and she noticed that several parameters were gradually shifting toward normal ranges. The subtle pressure variations that had been triggering the safety shutdowns were becoming less pronounced as Thompson fine-tuned the fuel injection timing. The final test would determine whether weeks of frustration and investigation had finally led to a solution. As Thompson completed the last calibration adjustment, the entire team gathered around the Apache for what they hoped would be a successful engine start. The atmosphere was tense as Chen initiated the startup sequence, knowing that everyone's reputation was riding on the outcome. The engine came to life with its familiar, powerful roar, but this time something was different. Instead of the subtle irregularities that had plagued previous attempts, the sound was smooth and consistent. 28 seconds passed without any sign of the mysterious shutdown, then 1 minute, then 5 minutes of continuous operation. General Williams allowed herself a small smile as she watched the successful engine test. Thompson's decades of experience and unconventional approach had succeeded where sophisticated diagnostic equipment and factory engineers had failed. The Apache was finally ready to return to service, and the training exercise could proceed as planned. The morning of the training exercise dawned clear and bright, with perfect conditions for helicopter operations. Captain Jake Thompson completed his pre-flight inspection of the Apache with extra care, knowing that this would be the aircraft's first combat mission since the mysterious engine problems had been resolved. Every system checked out perfectly, but he still felt a slight nervousness about trusting the repairs. Thompson had been flying helicopters for 12 years, but the emergency landing caused by the engine failure had shaken his confidence. He understood the technical explanation of what had gone wrong, but there was something unsettling about knowing that such a complex aircraft could be grounded by such a subtle calibration error. The fact that it had taken weeks to identify and fix the problem only reinforced how sophisticated these machines had become. In the maintenance hangar, Marcus Thompson was packing up his tools and preparing to return home. His work was complete, but he had spent the past few days training the base's technicians on the diagnostic techniques that had led to the solution. General Williams had insisted that the knowledge gained from this experience should not leave with Thompson, but should become part of the permanent expertise available on the base. Chief Warrant Officer Martinez had been assigned to document everything Thompson had taught them. She filled page after page with detailed notes about his diagnostic methods, his approach to problem solving, and the subtle signs that traditional equipment often missed. This documentation would become a valuable resource for future maintenance challenges and would be shared with other bases facing similar problems. The international training exercise involved pilots and aircraft from 6 different countries, all working together to demonstrate advanced combat techniques. The Apache that had been grounded played a crucial role in the exercise scenario, providing close air support for ground forces and coordinating attacks with other aircraft. Its absence would have significantly reduced the realism and effectiveness of the training. As the Apache lifted off for its first mission since the repairs, everyone in the maintenance hangar held their breath. The engine performed flawlessly during startup and initial flight operations, but the real test would come during the demanding maneuvers required by the exercise scenario. High-stress combat simulations pushed aircraft to their limits and revealed problems that might not appear during routine operations. Colonel Harrison watched the exercise from the command center, monitoring radio communications and tracking the positions of all participating aircraft. He could hear the confidence returning to Captain Thompson's voice as the Apache performed perfectly throughout the morning missions. The aircraft that had been a source of embarrassment for weeks was now demonstrating why it was considered one of the most effective attack helicopters in the world. General Williams had delayed her departure to observe the first day of the exercise. She wanted to ensure that the repairs held up under operational conditions and that there were no hidden problems that might emerge during actual combat maneuvers. Her reputation for thoroughness was one of the reasons she had been so successful in solving difficult problems throughout her career. Staff Sergeant Chen felt a tremendous sense of relief as he monitored the Apache's performance throughout the day. For weeks, he had been working 18-hour days trying to solve the engine problem, and his professional reputation had been on the line. The successful completion of the morning missions proved that the repairs were solid and that his maintenance team had done their job correctly. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez was analyzing real-time data from the Apache's systems, comparing current performance with the problematic readings they had struggled with for so long. Every parameter was within normal ranges, and the mysterious pressure fluctuations that had caused so much trouble were completely gone. The precision of Marcus Thompson's calibration work was evident in every measurement. The exercise scenarios became increasingly complex as the day progressed, testing not just individual aircraft performance, but also the coordination between different types of helicopters and support systems. The Apache participated in simulated attacks on fortified positions, escort missions for transport helicopters, and reconnaissance operations that required precise flying and split-second timing. During the afternoon missions, the Apache was required to perform some of the most demanding maneuvers in its operational repertoire. These included low-level terrain-following flights, rapid direction changes during simulated combat, and extended hovering operations that put maximum stress on the engine systems. Each maneuver was completed successfully, demonstrating that the repairs had fully restored the aircraft's capabilities. Marcus Thompson had been invited to observe the exercise from the flight line, and he watched with quiet satisfaction as the Apache he had helped repair performed flawlessly throughout the day. His decades of experience had taught him that the real test of any repair was not what happened in the hangar, but how the aircraft performed during actual operations. The success of the exercise validated his diagnostic methods and his approach to problem-solving. The international observers were impressed not just by the technical capabilities of the aircraft, but also by the professionalism of the maintenance teams that kept them operational. Several foreign delegations asked for detailed briefings about the diagnostic procedures that had been used to solve the engine problem, recognizing that similar issues could affect their own helicopter fleets. As evening approached, the final missions of the first day were completed without any problems. The Apache had flown for over 6 hours in challenging conditions, and every system had performed exactly as designed. The engine that had been the source of so much frustration was now running more smoothly than it had in months, thanks to the precise calibration work that had corrected the subtle timing errors. Colonel Harrison hosted a dinner for the international participants, and he made a point of publicly recognizing the maintenance team that had solved the engine problem. He also acknowledged General Williams for bringing in Marcus Thompson, whose expertise had been crucial to the success of the exercise. The ability to overcome technical challenges and maintain operational readiness was highlighted as an example of military professionalism at its best. General Williams used the dinner as an opportunity to discuss the broader implications of the Apache engine problem. She emphasized that as military equipment became more sophisticated, maintenance personnel needed to develop increasingly advanced diagnostic skills. The traditional approach of replacing parts until problems disappeared was no longer sufficient for dealing with complex integrated systems. The success of the exercise was not just measured by the performance of individual aircraft, but by the lessons learned about maintenance procedures and problem-solving techniques. General Williams announced that Marcus Thompson's diagnostic methods would be incorporated into training programs for maintenance personnel throughout the Army, ensuring that his expertise would benefit the entire fleet. Martinez had been promoted to lead a new specialized maintenance unit focused on solving complex technical problems that stumped conventional diagnostic approaches. Her experience with the Apache engine issue had demonstrated her ability to think beyond standard procedures and pursue innovative solutions. The new unit would serve as a resource for bases facing similar challenges. The Apache continued to perform flawlessly throughout the remainder of the training exercise, participating in complex multi-day scenarios that tested every aspect of its capabilities. The engine that had once failed after exactly 28 seconds of operation now ran for hours at a time without any sign of problems. The precision of Thompson's calibration work had completely eliminated the subtle timing errors that had caused so much trouble. Captain Thompson returned to regular flight operations with renewed confidence in his aircraft and in the maintenance team that supported it. The experience had taught him to appreciate the incredible complexity of modern military helicopters and the skill required to keep them operational. He also gained a deeper respect for the veteran mechanics whose experience and intuition could solve problems that defeated sophisticated diagnostic equipment. The training exercise concluded with a formal ceremony recognizing the participants and celebrating the successful demonstration of international military cooperation. The Apache, that had nearly missed the exercise due to mysterious engine problems, was prominently featured in the final demonstration flight, symbolizing the triumph of persistence and expertise over technical challenges. As Marcus Thompson prepared to leave the base, he was approached by several young technicians who wanted to thank him personally for sharing his knowledge. He reminded them that the most important tool in any mechanic's arsenal was not sophisticated diagnostic equipment, but rather the willingness to listen carefully and think creatively about problems. His parting advice was simple: trust your experience, pay attention to details, and never stop learning. The Apache engine problem had started as a source of frustration and embarrassment, but it ultimately became a valuable learning experience that strengthened the base's maintenance capabilities. The documentation created during the investigation would serve as a reference for future problems, and the diagnostic techniques demonstrated by Thompson would be passed on to the next generation of military mechanics. General Williams returned to her headquarters with a renewed appreciation for the importance of preserving institutional knowledge and ensuring that veteran expertise was not lost when experienced personnel retired. She initiated a program to identify other veteran mechanics with specialized knowledge and create opportunities for them to train younger personnel before their expertise was permanently lost. The successful resolution of the Apache engine problem became a case study used in military maintenance schools around the world. It demonstrated the importance of thinking beyond conventional diagnostic approaches and the value of combining modern technology with traditional mechanical intuition. Most importantly, it showed that even the most complex problems could be solved when the right expertise was brought to bear. Years later, The Apache continued to serve reliably in operations around the world, its engine running smoothly thanks to the precise calibration work performed by an elderly veteran who refused to accept that any mechanical problem was unsolvable. The 28-second mystery that had stumped engineers and technicians for weeks became a reminder that sometimes the most valuable knowledge comes not from textbooks or computers, but from decades of hands-on experience and an unwavering commitment to excellence.